Hi there and welcome to this week's episode of Money Moves with Debt Rescue, the channel where we help you move your money in the right direction. This is the second in our two-part series of 30 ways in which you can save money. So today we're going to kick off with number 16 and how we can save money in our budgets to make our money go further every month. Tip number 16 is use the 30-day rule. This tip is a magic one when it comes to planning purchases of higher value. When you plan on buying an item that costs a slightly higher amount than what normal items would be, the recommendation here is to put it into an interest-bearing account, let the money earn interest during those 30 days, and in that 30 days, you really think through if this is the right buy for you to make. And this could include, is it the right item? Is it the right brand? Is it the right price? And are you buying it from the right place? After 30 days, you would have earned interest on your original capital amount, but you would have also had enough time for this not to be an emotional purchase, but a well thought through one. Tip number 17 is save with online shopping. There are a lot of platforms on which you can currently buy virtually anything in this country, and it might sometimes work and other times not, but it's definitely worth trying. If you're planning your purchasing, make sure that you firstly do your research, shop around, see what options there are at your different places. But if you are purchasing an item that is perhaps a higher price item, put it in your cart and leave it there while you are thinking it over. A lot of times you might also see some surprises where you get emails to say that your item is now on special. Tip number 18 is fill up your flask. Load shedding has taught us a couple of really interesting ways of how to get creative around our houses, and one of them is how we can save on electricity by filling up a flask in the morning with hot water, sealing it properly, and making sure that we don't fill up the kettle each time we need to make a cup of coffee, but use the hot water from the flask. Tip number 19 is learn to negotiate, or in the alternative, shop around. If you're shopping face to face, especially when you are perhaps in your smaller shops, you can definitely negotiate. Look at the item, look at the store owner, and see if there's a way you can negotiate the price down a little. A lot of times you can get away with a little discount there. And then the alternative is obviously making sure you research before you buy. You might not be able to negotiate with an online store, but the options are quite wide and you can definitely find items cheaper in other places if you shop around. Tip number 20 is buying quality. With some items, they're all equal and it's not necessary for you to have to shop around much and you will look for the cheaper item. But with others, it's most definitely worth looking at buying quality. This is going to be one of those things where in the short term, it might cost you a little bit more, but in the long term, it's going to last a lot longer. So make sure you do your research, make sure you understand the significance of the quality of the item and buy according to what you can afford, but also making sure that if it's worth it, to rather save for a while and buy the better quality item. Tip number 21 is use the library. Obviously online right now we can get virtually everything and anything, and you can download anything and buy it at the click of a button. But the reality is a lot of times when we look at, for example, books, we might buy it, read it, and then it sits on our shelves and gathers dust for a very long time. Libraries are a treasure trove with lovely books at no cost. Take them out, read it, return it, and it doesn't cost you anything, and we make sure that our libraries stay alive. Tip number 22 is balance your bank fees. Look around to see if you are still getting the best value for money for the type of bank account you have. Look at the transactions that you do, look at the kind of usage you have, and then do some shopping around to see what products are out there. Most banks are constantly revamping their product offerings to consumers, and make sure that you are not wasting money on charges for a type of a bank account that you no longer need or use, but also smarter banking, maybe looking at changing your banking habits and moving more online to see if you can save money there. Tip number 23 is using a budget. We've spoken about budgets numerous times in the past and probably will do so for quite some time still. But the reality is this list wouldn't be complete without mentioning a budget, but Also, it's become so imperative as part of our monthly financial planning to make sure that we have one. So make sure that you use your budget. Tip number 24 is clearing up your debt. Few things currently cause as much stress and sleepless nights to people as concerns around their debt. Making sure that as part of that budget, you know what you can and cannot afford will prevent you from entering into debt that you potentially could not afford in the long run, or is really going to place more of a burden on your budget. So make sure that debt and how you incur it and what for is really carefully planned. Tip number 25 is covering your geyser. Obviously, we know that our geysers take up at least 40% of our monthly electricity bill. And in winter months when it's cooler, we know that that's probably higher because your geyser cools down as the temperature cools down, which means it's using more electricity. So making sure that you pop into a hardware store and buy a proper geyser blanket and cover your geyser accordingly will make sure that your electricity usage doesn't jump up unnecessarily high just because of temperature changes out there. Tip 26 is cancel those subscriptions. A lot of times it's very easy to click here and there for low-cost subscriptions, but they all add up over time, and a lot of times we actually forget some of the subscriptions we have. Make sure at the end of the month you check your notifications in your banking app or on your bank statement for all the subscriptions that you might belong to and those that you no longer need or use, and make sure that you cancel them so that you're not paying for things that you no longer use. Tip 27 is leave the kids at home when you go shopping. Younger kids do still enjoy going out with their parents, teenagers maybe not so much, but the reality is taking kids to the store could sometimes become boring for them, which obviously places strain on you, which means it might rush you through your shopping, or alternatively, they get very tempted with some of the items on the shelves, which could then again place another burden on your budget whereby you might be tempted to buy them items. So it's preferable to maybe not take the kids shopping when we go out because we could possibly end up spending money we didn't plan on. Tip number 28 is watch your fuel consumption. Obviously, we know that we are sitting at record high fuel prices currently, which is placing a very big burden on the budget every month. So some tips here when it comes to our fuel consumption and transport usage is to make sure that we are planning our trips, rather maybe doing some online shopping as opposed to popping out to the stores as frequently, and making sure that we are looking at carpooling or planning our trips to and from places very carefully. Tip number 29 is be careful of get it now schemes. A lot of the items we see out there looks like a combination of instant gratification or things that will most definitely make my life a lot easier. The reality is a large number of them end up in the back of the drawer or in the garage and never end up being used because sometimes they just do not fit in with our lifestyles or are what we thought they were going to be. Think it through, think if you really need the item and whether this is really going to bring that gratification that you hoped it would. Our final tip is revel in the free fun. Generally, when we think entertainment, we think big budget. We're thinking eating out, we're thinking expenditure on entertainment and so forth. But the reality is we still can plan items that are either low cost or no cost. Board games, fun with a family, make some popcorn, get some cool drinks, hours of entertainment, lots of memories being created. Or alternatively, look for an area close to you where you can maybe go for a safe walk, public parks that are still well maintained and are beautiful to go and walk around in. Do some research of what's on in your area that won't cost a fortune. That's it for our episode on how we can save some more money and make the budget go further. Thank you for joining us here at Money Moves with Debt Rescue. Please remember to like our channel, subscribe, share the video, and please leave us some comments if there's anything you think that we can add to our list of things that can help us save and make our budgets stretch further.